We engage in authentic conversations about our weekly entrepreneurial goals while exploring business, failures, success, and personal growth.
We're going to continue to work and get better at this, so thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Our vision will highlight a diversity of guests who are creatives, industry leaders, and individuals creating positive change within our communities. Join us on the Our Vision podcast.
Our shared journey to become better humans.
It's not only our vision, but it's your vision too.
FSU.
Welcome, Brad.
Welcome, Joe.
How's it going?
It's going good.
I know you wanted to talk about something specific today.
I do. It's, yeah.
So tell me. Talk to me.
Well, we started down looking at a foreclosure in town here, and we had never ran that process down before, and we are in the middle of doing that. So
we're talking about a foreclosure and a sheriff's sale auction.
Right. And so we started looking at this several months ago as being a possibility for driving us for 3 this year. So the one we have now, the duplex, then another duplex, and possibly doing a foreclosure. So we started researching it a few months ago, and seems like we might be able to, hopefully. We have to put a deposit down and do a wire transfer tomorrow, and that might stop us altogether. So we have to see. You need 2 business days, but sometimes it goes in on 1 business day, and we kind of messed up there a little bit.
Yeah, we might be a little late on that.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And then so one of the things we started looking at was the liens on the house, doing comps on the house to understand how much it's worth and how much money might have to go into it. And it's really hard to tell those things when you can't walk through the home. So we've been kind of tossing around those ideas and what the best case scenario would be and the worst case scenario would be. And I still think this property would be one that would work even if we had to go to the worst case scenario.
So tell me the details on the comps.
So the comps in our area for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with that size lot and in the neighborhood that it's in comparative to the surrounding area is anywhere from 40 to 70. So we're somewhere in between there, I believe, with this property. Right down the road here, there was actually one that was about the same size as that, which is a few blocks away, and that sold for $74,000 this year. Now that might all flatten out a little bit because real estate's changing, but even if it does flatten out a little bit, I think we'd still be okay with this property, even putting $15,000 into it. I'm hoping for 10, but we haven't even got it yet. But if we were to get it, that's what I would be hopeful for.
So Joe figured out the comps. We sat down, figured out like how the sheriff sale works. The auction, it's an online auction. We lucked out too because we got a partner investor as well. So we don't have all the capital. So that's going to help us out a lot if this goes through.
Right.
Or in the future.
So we decided to, actually it's my brother and his wife. They came into town and they had seen the work that we had completed on the duplex that we're doing now, which sparked Sean and Jackie's interest. Like, oh, well, geez, this looks great. You guys did a wonderful job. So they kind of have, they're jumping on as partners financially, and then we would be doing most of the physical work of, cosmetics or fixing the place up. So I think that'd work out really well. And then on top of it, we're trying to like work through that partnership deal, like what's fair for everybody. And Sean and Jackie are very fair people to work with. So they're also looking at like, oh, if we have to do the management of collecting rent on a place, then we're gonna charge them 8 to 12% out of whatever would come into the cash flow portion of it. So I thought that was really fair. And then also they realized that we're putting in labor to fix the place up. So there's some wiggle room there too, as far as being equal partners 3 ways on that. So
we're getting our feet wet into figuring out how to partner with other people, like what they bring to the table, what we bring to the table, and determining. So it's given us some experience with that, which is good. And the sheriff's sale.
Yeah.
Because we learned a ton with that too.
Yeah, reading through and, because we never had been a part of any of this. So It's all new for us. I know other people probably have done it and they know what they're doing, but we don't. So there's some risk there. I think, high risk.
So in our county for that price point, I can't remember what the price range is, but for that being a $15,000 starting bid property, we're required to put down $5,000 as a deposit,
yeah,
which will go
lower,
towards that.
Yes,
if you won the bid,
right, and anything lower than that would be 2, and then it starts to climb up to there's another 10,000.
Yeah, there's brackets,
right? So, and I know it sounds like 15,000, like the place must be a shithole. That's not the case. Like the outside has been sided, it's got central air. We talked to some of the neighbors the other day. And so the roof has been done recently. That was the other thing we found on the house. There was a lien on the roof for $6,800, back taxes of $4,600, I think. So there is some issue there, but that's what the auction is going to pay off. It pays it off, and from our understanding, it pays off the taxes, and then it would go towards the next lien on the home, which would be
there were 2 liens.
Yep, for the roof,
tax and roof liens.
So back to the partnership. So we started like breaking that out with Sean and Jackie a little bit, and we set up a Google Docs to start bulleting out our conversation and what we need to do. And even if we don't get this place, we're starting to look at how can we set up a partnership account for this, and then do we need to set up an LLC, which I think we should, or whatever that might be. I'm not quite sure what that might be yet. And then they're in agreement that money, any cash flow that comes from a property, would just sit in that account until we decide to put it into an investment of some sort. I mean, we're not just going to leave our money in the bank. We're going to try to roll it over into something that would get us more interest on top of what we're doing. So that's interesting. And like I said, they're really easy to work with. It's very, very open conversations about the risk. We've been very open with them that this could be risky, and they know, or it could turn into be X amount of cash flow. So I'm going to enjoy working with them, and hopefully we can in the future pick up some other investors, because I think there's some other bigger properties someday I'm sure you would like to have more doors, and I think we're going to need people to help make that happen at first.
So yeah, with this, there are some risks. Luckily, we were able to kind of peek in some of the windows and door to get a look at it, and everything inside looks okay. It's been gutted basically and drywalled. We were worried that potentially what'll happen in some of these properties, people will break in and steal all the wiring, the copper wiring out of the walls. One thing we're unsure about is the plumbing. We looked under the house in the crawl space. It looked fine there, but we don't know what's going on inside. We don't know if there's a kitchen, if there's cabinets up, bathroom. So those are some unknowns, and the back of it is unsided. Yeah,
there are, and I agree with you. There's definitely some unknowns there, Brad. It's like, that makes you really nervous.
Any of these, you're taking a risk unless you can get in the property or get to the property before it goes up for the sheriff's sale.
Right.
And you can, in some cases, people do that.
Right.
And I don't know if you want to get into talking about that, like how you go about that process, because you did a little digging on that.
On the, as far as
the probate.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm still working on that to decide that would be before it goes to sale or in the process of going to sale once it goes through a court. That would be more if somebody died. And so finding out when the courts have proceeded to move forward on allowing that property to be sold.
Is that only if somebody dies, though?
Well, that's where I was researching a couple weeks ago, was like, how do you access when that's about to happen? And then that goes to a lawyer, right? And that lawyer then will hand it off to a real estate agent. Sometimes it depends on who's next to kin, or
the people are still alive and maybe they're losing their house for whatever reason. There are still ways that you could contact them.
Yeah, I mean, in this case too. Yeah, in this case, if we were to pay off the taxes and make a deal with her, then that would be great. But
there are ways of doing that. Not that everyone's going to want to do that.
Right.
So
I don't know specifically in this case. We found out some things, and I don't know how deep we want to go into that, but we found out that this has happened before on this property, and then the taxes get cleaned up, and then it comes off of, out of it no longer goes up for foreclosure or auction. So we'll see. But what other concerns do you have with a foreclosure?
Just the unknowns of what's going on the inside. From what we saw with this property, everything was drywalled, so a lot of it would just be finishing that and installing a kitchen if we had to.
Worst case would be a bathroom.
Or a bathroom.
Right.
Or both.
And those are all within something that we're comfortable in doing. That's why we're moving forward. And it's small enough. This isn't a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot home. This is a 1,000 square foot home. So that's I'm comfortable with that. And I know you are from talking to you.
So if we can get that property within, we're thinking with our budget right now, and you at the max 20 to 25,000, it's totally worth it with the way the comps run on that property.
Yes.
So putting that work into it, and we'd do most of the labor, so we'd save a ton of money there on that.
Right. Yeah. So that makes it more doable, I think, for us.
And then it just cash flows once it's done.
Right. It's outright.
So
it's just an outright cash flow.
And there's no mortgage. Yep. And it's just 100% cash flow.
So I'm excited to try it. And even if tomorrow it doesn't work out with the wire, we've moved through the process of starting to learn about for the next one. Because if this one doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. We'll look for another property. It's not that big of a deal. I'm trying to think if there's anything else along the way that I was concerned about. It's always like we check the neighborhood out. That was the other thing. So, kind of goes back to buying the worst house on the neighborhood, but it's still a decent side of town. Like I like the neighborhood. We met some of the neighbors. It seems like they watch out for properties around the area. They seem pretty close relatively. Everybody knows each other by their first name so far. And that was appealing to us too. The other thing, it fit you and I have like criteria when we're looking for a place. We want to live there. Right. So we would live in this place after it was fixed up. We like the neighborhood. We like the people around it. And I think that's kind of important to you and I, right? So That was the other thing that made this property attractive. So I'm trying to think the other thing anything else that we learned.
Yes,
on this. What was something else, Brad? I know there's a few things.
Well, digging. I think another important thing was digging to find the liens, because the taxes were easy to find because
the county
tax
auditor.
lien, you go to the auditor, your county auditors, and it tells you all the information if they owe taxes on the property. But we knew there had to be some other liens on it.
So we went to the recorders.
So we went to the recorder, and they have a public search. And this probably is different in other counties, but in our county, there was a public search, and you could go on and search the individual's name that owns the property, or that owned the property, and find any liens that they may have had.
And especially
that's where we found that.
With that database, it was very specific though, because we were both doing it at two different computers, and you were able to access it quicker than I was. And it's just very specific on how you have to enter everything in. Because I was doing it, it wasn't coming up, and I had one field, I think I had it in the wrong field, and nothing would come up. And you got it, and there was like 8 different documents that we could go through on the public.
Yeah, there were a lot of different fields, and they're not all that clear. All the county websites are always they're not that easy to navigate.
It takes a little bit of practice. Like I've gotten really good on the county auditor site, but not on the recorder site. So,
but there could also be other liens that we didn't find. Like there could be, I don't know if those would be within this, but like federal liens, like tax evasion liens, that's another potential. Right. Maybe they owe more on the mortgage, but that would be a little easier to find, I think.
Yeah, and we didn't see anything on those issues,
because that would all be within the recorder search.
Should be. I don't know 100% because we're walking through it, but you brought up a good point. It's the person that's bidding on the foreclosure's responsibility to get this checked out. So you can actually go to a title office and pay them to do what we just did, or you can do it yourself, and maybe we'll make a mistake by not knowing all the ins and outs. But I feel like we did our due diligence on this property, and then I feel comfortable with making a bid on it. Now, that might change as we move forward on the process. We might have missed something, but you can go to a title office and have them see if it's, where the title is and how that's all playing out.
So we found out there was around $11,000 in liens.
Yep. Which
is within that $15,000 starting bid range. So all that should be covered in that. So it's really just a matter of coming up with the money, because at a sheriff's sale, we're paying cash for the property because it's within our range with you, myself, and the other partners. So, but there are other ways to do that from what we read previously, that you can take a 203K FHA loan
and I know
any kind of loan, home loan.
I know my aunt did that on her home. She bought one and, and had a loan on it. 40. I don't know how all that works. You have so many days afterwards to get it approved, and you have to come up with the money. The other thing is like when you're bidding on these houses, you have to come up with that money. One way or the other, you have to come up with that money, because otherwise you can be found in contempt of court of making a purchase or a bid on a home that you're not at some point paying in full.
You have to pay it off
right
in a certain amount of time once they contact you and everything's cleared. So
you want to make sure that you have those monies in the account. That's a little nerve wracking. So you want to make sure whoever you're partnering with, if you have financial backing, that money's actually there. You don't want to put yourself in a predicament to make a choice that's going to hurt you. Of course, I mean, this all goes without saying, but those are things you have to think about when you're partnering with people too, I think.
Yeah. And with this property, the good thing about this property is that if we get this, it's going to increase our equity significantly and afford us other opportunities to invest in properties. So,
and the other thing I think it fits with our goal is that what it would allow us to do is to fix this property up. We're already looking for another duplex right now, right? So we're actively looking for that. We would have this place, we just got residential business zoned, which would allow us to Airbnb this place in Sandusky, Ohio. Yep, as long as we go through the process of getting that permit and everything, and it goes through. Then we would have this home. That home would have 2 units in it, and then we'd be able to live and work out of that other smaller house, which would be free and clear, and we'd be able to fix that up in the process of allowing the other 2 properties to cash flow as much as possible, which would give us the ability to be landlords or working on that to be able to show that income towards the next purchase of another house. So, I mean, strategically, this makes sense for our goal. So it's nice to have another backer to allow us to get to that 3rd and 4th, 5th house. And I think I can see that happening now through this, because between the business, between having the cash flow coming in, and when we can show that down and we can leverage that for the next 2 places, I think that'll work well for us with our situation. I mean, there's lots of different ways of doing this. So, I'm pretty excited about it. At least I'm excited to continue to learn different ways of being able to have rental properties. So,
yeah. Did we talk about the process of what we had to do to wire the money? Like in our county, we had to make an account with the, what was that site called?
Real Auction. And they handle Erie, Ottawa for us. Yeah. At least for this
you
foreclosure.
Have to have your deposit in there 2 business days before the auction. And I did read something too. They do a 7-day prior proxy auction where people can bid before the date.
You found that?
But I don't know how accurate that is.
And we ran into a little bit of a hiccup. So the Real Auction sent us the information we would need to do the wire. It said, take this to your bank. But we went into the bank, we went to 2 different branches, and what was missing was their address. So, which was really strange. I bank with PNC, and they weren't able to do the wire transfer for us. So we're going to have to call in the morning to see if we can find an address for our bank to be able to do the wire transfer, which I thought was a little odd that they would say, this is what you need to bring into your bank. And then when you go to do a search on their business, you can't find any address. You find a zip code in Florida or zip code in Minnesota or whatever, but you don't find anything as far as a PO box or an actual address, and they need that to do the wire. So
I think there was an address. It was just not the one that they would accept.
There was an address for the bank, not for the auction house.
I don't understand why they don't have that on there.
We're going to have to do a little bit of work in the morning tomorrow and see what that's all about. So either way, it's not the end of the world. If it doesn't go through, it's fine. It's part of the learning process, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. And a lot of shit I didn't know how to do, and I'm just trying to figure it out.
Plenty more opportunities.
Right. I'm disappointed if it doesn't go through, but yeah, it's whatever. We'll make it work. Trying to think if there's anything else that I was really concerned about. Yeah, to me, it's a little concerning that you could buy a house and then you can get in and there's, you can't see a hole.
You don't know what you're getting into.
No clue what you're. I mean, we could get in there and I don't know, all the power or all the pipes could have burst in this place, and we're gonna have to chase it down, and
or the people living there trashed it.
Yeah. So
there's many. I've heard a lot of different stories, like someone's house is going up and they go in and just completely wreck the inside, tear it up intentionally because of that reason.
Right. So that that's still
pipelines, like it could be sitting for a long time and it's not properly weatherized for the water pipes and they burst. Yep. Then you got a mess there.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Foundation.
Win the auction and then somebody goes in and takes a sledgehammer to all the drywall they just put in and all the electric. I mean, that just, like that could happen. I try to think that people won't do that, but that worries me a little bit.
It's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
Lots of risks.
Right.
So if you can get to it before it goes to auction, if there's a way you can find it, that's probably your best bet. But if you can find a property like this for a starting bid at $15,000, it's if you can do it, if you can try to bid on it, if you have the money.
There are other rentals in this area where they go for auction and people nab them up for 35, 40, 50,000, 15, 20,000. We've seen it, over and over again.
A lot of people are doing that.
And
this house. Go ahead.
No, and so like it's possible. I mean, it's just another avenue for us because we're not buying properties that are 250,000 or 300,000. We're looking at the 80, 100,000 or lower, right? 120 would be top for us. So we're not at that point where we're looking at properties that we don't have enough leverage to be able to do that at this point. So these are the properties that we're looking at, but we see it over and over again when we go through the auditor site and what people have paid for homes. And when you look on the sheriff sales in the past, you see what people are paying for and kind of get an idea where those houses are at. And some of those are rentals. So what were we going to say, Brad? I'm sorry.
I was going to say this house, we found out from people in the neighborhood that the house has been sitting this way for over 10 years, according to them.
Right.
And it's like,
and the electric and heat is on, like she keeps, so there's a weird story there. And I don't know if I
won't get into too much detail, but for a house to be sitting there, and some people are okay with that. They're like, well, we don't want people. Yeah, it's like, why would you let a house sit there and rot?
Well, like on our street, we have two homes that are sitting completely empty that are decent homes. That could be, I don't know how much work they need inside, but the outside is kept up. The roof is solid. And the reason I'm not saying I want to get into that, Brad, just to clarify for people that are listening, like I don't always like speaking about somebody. I don't really know. You hear this from somebody else.
And I would never do that.
No, and I know you would. And I was just like the stories that we heard the other day were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And believable too, some of it based on some other knowledge that we have, but I don't know that personally firsthand. You know what I mean? So I don't ever want to like say something about somebody else that I might not know.
Yeah, we don't know 100% of the situation. So, and all the details of that.
But I will say it's nice to talk to people because we found 2 other homes on that street that are possibly could be sold that are not on the market right now. Which I also thought was interesting yesterday. Did you like that the other day? We got walked through one house.
So
go ahead. Yeah.
Joe's the kind of guy. I'm not this kind. I mean, I'll talk to people, but Joe saw someone that just happened to be out in the neighborhood that was right across the street from the house, just probably a couple houses down.
Right.
So Joe's like, okay, I'm going to chat with this guy.
I was in the car, so I drove up, rolled the window down, and said, hey, man, what's going on?
And so the guy was talking to us for a while, and then he walked us around that block, on that street, to show us some other properties.
Yeah, we went from talking to him out the window.
These people might want to sell this one. These people might want to sell this one over here, too.
Yeah, so he showed us.
Introduced us to his neighbor across the street,
which was a sister of the one
tour of a house that he had mentioned.
Yeah. So my point to that is, if you're listening, is it's cool to talk to people sometimes, because we did that even before we bought this place too. Like I walked down the street, I seen a couple of ladies sitting on their stoops. I say, hey, how you doing? We're thinking about, how do you like the neighborhood? And you start to get this feel for the neighborhood, and you start to get to know who the people are right away. And that happened to us yesterday. And like I said, the benefit of that, like you said, we found 2 houses that weren't on the market. Driving by, you would not know it because the yards were all kept up. So you hear people like driving for dollars, right? They're looking for houses that are all grown up. That doesn't always happen. Like those 2 properties were kept up. Yeah. So you would go by this house, and if you didn't live on the street or drive by all the time, you wouldn't know that the lights are all off all the time and all that kind of thing. So it's not the end of the world if we don't get this property. There's other properties out there. There's always properties out there.
I want to bring up something else too that struck me, and it's something that we've been seeing, and the perception of the city with landlords in Sandusky, the city of Sandusky. And everyone we talk to, their perception of rental properties seems to be more negative.
Yes.
And we see that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of landlords in the city that do not take care of their properties.
Right.
They just cash flow the properties.
Agree.
And they don't put the money back into it. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but a lot of properties that we went and looked at were that way.
Well, and I think it brings it to a bigger, on top of all that too. I agree with you. And we went through a lot that were not maintained. Totally agree with you. And the other thing is like renters all of a sudden sometimes come up as this like second class citizen. And I don't like that because I was a renter for a long, long time. And I feel like that didn't lessen who I was as a person. And we've come across that in the last few weeks. We've come across statements that it almost like a renter is less than. And that's a shitty attitude to have. I'm sorry.
That and questioning even having a rental in their neighborhood.
Right. So, we live in a city where our rental is and best I can figure out is in the 40 to 40, top end would be 49%. So we live in a city that has about 49% from what I understand. I don't know that. That's the best number I can get right now. So we have a lot of renters here, and I don't think that makes them less. But
no.
I think that's just a shitty attitude to have. Is like, oh, I own a home, so I'm better than these people that rent, and I gotta wonder if somebody thinks that, what other issues do they have? I'm sorry, I'm going to be pretty blunt about that because I think it's a shitty way of thinking.
Well, I think their perception is that way because they have had terrible tenants in these rental properties, and that's why I brought up the landlord problem.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. The more you let your properties run down, because I wouldn't live in a rundown property when I was renting. You've seen what I lived in. I never lived in shit.
Right.
I wanted to look for something that I felt comfortable in, that I, was proud to live in, and I could afford. So those are some of the things I looked for, and I think there's a lot of renters that feel that way. And there's a lot of renters that take what they can get too. Sometimes. We live in a community where the one lady who moved out of here said there was 160 applicants when she went to go apply for something. That tells you there's not enough places for affordable living, right?
Yeah.
And she was a great runner. She kept her place clean here. She was a good runner, So anyways, good point that you brought up. Sorry if I got a little.
No, it's fine.
Me on that kind of stuff. I do not tolerate letting somebody think they're better than them because they own a Lincoln and the guy owns a Camry or something. You're not any better, no matter what your position is.
Yeah, so, and I agree with you on that too. So yeah, I think the message of this episode is explore other ways of investing in properties.
Yep.
Don't just think that there's one way of doing it. There's many creative ways you can do this. And anything you want to say?
I agree. I think it comes down to integrity. Keep doing it. Do it well. Do the best you can, and other people around you will recognize that. And other people, like my brother, seen that and said he was willing to come in as an investor. And I think that's how it starts, is people see that you're doing it and you're trying to do the very best you can. So,
and doing it in a way that you're going to improve your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like invest back into your properties, invest back into the people that are renting your property because they're paying you the money to pay this property off. So in my opinion, I feel like they deserve that,
Yeah. Well, and we're a part of our community. So, just keep moving forward. We're going to keep learning, and we'll let you know how this works out for us. Even if we fail at this, we've moved forward and we're learning, and we're continually looking for people that are doing the same. So peace.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Out.